Hi guys, welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. This week we are doing something a little bit different. It's not your typical true crime story, but it's everywhere and we both had so many thoughts and opinions and we wanted to get down to the facts. So we're just going to dive in. This week we are covering Travis Scott and the Astroworld Festival that just took place this past weekend and just everything that went down. So before we get into like this past weekend and what happened, like I will just say like I'm not a fan, right? So I don't know a whole lot about Travis Scott prior to this. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I just want to give you a little background of who he is and what this festival is all about. So Travis Scott, he was born Jacques Berman Webster II, and he was born April.
Jacques. It's Jacques.
Oh, I'm
Jenna.
sorry, Jacques.
Oh.
Don't you know by now if you listen that I am the worst. Sorry. April 30th, 1990, Taurus,
Making him an
right?
Aries. Oh,
The Taurus.
yeah, Taurus. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You
That's the
should know
one that
this.
I mix up. I get really mixed up with the Taurus Aries.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, so he was born and raised in Houston, Texas. And as he was growing up, his family went to the Six Flags Astroworld that was there in Houston. And that was like a big part of his upbringing. And just, when you have those kind of childhood memories, that was something that was really important to him. So he started putting out records in about 2013 and he started really getting more famous with his third studio album that was called Astroworld, basically after this amusement park that was eventually torn down. So that was in 2018. So during the Astroworld also gained him his first Grammy nomination, which he later had 7 more after that to come. So he was definitely like up and coming and getting all these accolades as a rap artist. And in November of 2018, the Astroworld Festival was born. So, like I mentioned, had all these memories about the theme park that was torn down. So that was really the motivation behind the festival, was to quote, bring back the beloved spirit and nostalgia of Astroworld, making a childhood dream of Travis's come true. And there was, it was similar to a lot of these festivals where there's multiple stages and it felt like a theme park. There was like a swing, I think. There's
Some sort of like theme park ride, or that's what he always tries to model it off of. I did know who Travis Scott was before this.
I mean, I knew who he was, but I'm not a fan. I'll be very honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wasn't someone I
Yeah.
followed. I
I
had
follow
no idea how popular he was, though. No idea.
So yeah, in the hip hop world, I mostly know because my nephews are really young, and whenever my nephew starts noticing somebody, I pay attention because he's an Aquarius and they're very ahead of their time. But anyway, he has like a crazy following, and allegedly, like when he first came out, he wasn't very famous at all. He was, before Kylie got together with him. And then supposedly in the hip hop world, they say that he bought a bunch of fans, like bought a bunch of followers on Instagram and that sort of thing, and started to make clout. And they lied about how his sales and how good his record sold and stuff like that. And so he really got this power team behind him. And here's a crazy thing. Guess who manages him?
Oh, I know this. It's Lou Taylor, right?
Lou Taylor,
I
the woman who
saw
took over
that.
Britney Spears and started the entire conservatorship.
So
She
wild.
allegedly, she runs this company called TriStar. When I saw that, I was dumbfounded. I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" So yeah, this whole Astro world, he's obviously very obsessed with his childhood memory. And if anyone follows Kylie and he made an Astro world for Stormy for her first birthday, and he kind of mimics that theme even in this concert, like the way that it looks. A lot of his videos, you kind of go through his mouth. It's a lot of drug music. I mean, it's like um methodical. Well, I don't know how to describe it, but have you listened to it? I mean, it
I
sounds.
mean, I watched his documentary and to be more knowledgeable of like who he is. And uh you can't really, there's so much auto tune that goes on in these songs. I don't even know if I could tell you a lyric. Like
I
it's
couldn't finish
so
that
hard.
documentary.
It was not good, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I remember that
There's not a
like
lot to
it
it.
reminds me of in my day, Lollapalooza, you know, like the
Mhm.
festivals and,
It's
kind
good.
like the Woodstock. It's all that
It
we've
was
always had these festivals.
back in our day, it was World Warp Tour. That was one I always went to. That was like us
Oh
emo
yeah.
kids.
Yeah. And then eventually raves, right? And
Yeah.
then now it just seems like an amalgamation of all of that and kind of terrifying with how many drugs there are and like how fanatical they are because now
Yeah.
you can know everything about an artist and kind of feel like you know them. We didn't have that where you can
Mm-mm.
reach out and tweet or Instagram or what have you. And so it's almost like they feel even closer to the person.
Yeah.
So the tickets for this 2021 festival allowed for 100,000 people, and 50,000 of the tickets sold out in 30 minutes. So the tickets were sold out, but online, Travis Scott still encouraged kids to go. And so many showed up with no tickets and just simply rushed security and pushed down or jumped over the barricades, which also happened at the Warped Tour, at Lollapalooza, at Woodstock. Like that
I
does
don't that
happen.
never happened when I was at these things. There was always like getting into places anything I've ever been to has always been very organized and like no rushing of anything because I am not down for that stuff. So I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like I would remember
Yeah.
if,
But there's always been people sneaking in. They've
oh,
just been jumping
sure.
over a fence and it's just been like a trickle. It hasn't been now kids like you said, like pushing everything over and go and I don't know like it's such social psychology. Like what is that? Is that a new thing? Is it not? Because when we were researching this, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so horrible," but this has been happening since the 70s and it happens
Yeah.
quite a bit and it's not a new phenomenon, especially as we both know in the soccer world. I mean, it happens
Oh,
constantly in
I
South America, in Europe.
I think the big difference with this one and maybe other ones, and we're gonna obviously get into it, but I feel like the part Travis specifically plays in it is not what a lot of other people are known for doing.
Agreed. For example, this tweet that is not aging well. The day of the festival or the day before, when they had sold out tickets, Travis tweeted, "Nah, and we still sneak in the wild ones in." Wild ones meaning the ones that rage, the ones
Yeah.
that, in the mosh pit.
Wild and out, kids.
Look at you, sounding all young.
Just using what the young kids say these days.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Okay.
let's get into this last weekend. Tell us what happened. What was this all about?
Okay. So as of now, as of recording this, 8 people have died and hundreds of people are injured as a result of attending Travis Scott's music festival in his native Houston, Texas, as we said. The youngest victim so far is 14, but there's still 3 more people in critical condition, one of them being just 10 years old. So, what happened? This particular event was held at the NRG Park, and the organizer was Live Nation, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. And interestingly, Live Nation is very closely tied to the Kardashians because the owner's wife is Kris Jenner's best friend. So it all began around 9:30 p.m. last Friday night, November 5th, after concert goers surged toward the stage when Travis Scott and special guest Drake began their headlining set. So the festival had taken place all day, like they do, but everyone was waiting, obviously, for Travis. Some people got there as early as that morning and simply sat down right in front of the main stage next to the barricades because that's where you get the best view, right? And so more on that later. During the day, things had been fine, although there were floods of kids sneaking in without tickets, like we said, and there's video of you can see them just like charging in. And it's not a few, it's a lot of kids.
Oh yeah.
And at this point, staff was prepared to tackle a crowd of 50,000, but some now say it might have been more like 100,000. So there's the first problem, not enough people. So at 9:30, when Travis comes out with special guest Drake, as I said, the crowd surges towards the stage and is contained by the steel barricades that come chest high. So if you're right next to them, you can barely be pulled out by security, and I found a TikTok showing that, so we'll show that now.
This video shows how crowded it was and difficult to get a man out.
So yeah, that's crazy when you're up against those barriers. Like I going to like smaller shows and stuff, you could not pay me to ever be in the front of anything like that. I was always in the very back because of stuff like this was very scary to me. And multiple people have shared their experiences on TikTok, as I'm sure most people have heard or seen by now. And it's horrifying to see what was going on there. And here's just a few people screaming to Scott, begging him to stop the show.
Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show!
Houston, just make some motherfucking noise real quick, y'all.
Stop the show! Stop the show! Stop the show!
Cell phone flashlights in the air, y'all.
There's been a very vocal girl who attended the concert and in my opinion is an absolute hero. She shared her experience online, just basically in a text form, and then other people started posting their videos and somebody said, "Oh, I think I caught you on video. Is this you?" So, and it was exactly what she had said. She was not exaggerating or anything. She explained that she had been right up against the barricades because they had waited all morning and they immediately started surging. And, you know, when you're up against something hard, there's nowhere to go but be crushed. You know, the people in the middle are actually safer because they can go with the flow. But if you're up against something, you're done so. So she went underneath because it also sucks you down.
Yeah.
And when she was down there, she saw a dead body. And she was panicking and she got up and she was asking people for help, but nobody could move. And so she looked for anything to climb on and she saw a cameraman. So she climbs up the scaffolding and she's like, "Stop the show. There's somebody dead." And this cameraman, I mean, he's doing his job, right? And it's a concert. Who knows? He could be like, "Oh, this crazy lady's on drugs," or what have you. He doesn't want to be liable for anything. It just,
or you have a radio, pick it up and say, "Hey, I have a girl here reporting a dead body or someone's hurt. Can I get a medic?" Wow, how simple is that? Like they all
does have a
radios.
headset.
Yeah.
He does have a headset. And if people don't know, I worked in the entertainment industry for a little bit, and the artist always has an earpiece in, and the producer is always able to speak to them at any time. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Kim Kardashian was held at gunpoint, Kanye was performing.
Yes.
And they came on stage, and because he heard in his earpiece, and he immediately canceled the show and walked off. So that is totally their right. They can do that at any time for any reason.
And just gonna kind of really quick, I did find out that he's basically his own, like he has his own label and stuff. So I almost, where that kind of gets dicey is there's a lot of yes people around you, and
there's no oversight.
Everybody, so who's to say, like,
and Lou Taylor's at the top?
Yeah, no. So who's to say, like, well, how much they were really trying? But yeah, and this guy specifically, though, he has a way to, it could have just been handled so much better. And I get it. And when you're in the moment, you don't know what's going on. You're doing your job. You got somebody yelling at you. I mean, it's a lot, but could have been, even if you thought she was on drugs. Hey, I have a girl yelling at me. Can someone send somebody to come help her? Like, I don't know.
And there was another young man with her, and he was like backing her up, saying the same thing. So we'll play that TikTok for you now.
That's okay with you real quick. Take me, let's do it.
So clearly it's exactly as she said. She's begging for help, and she's clearly very with it, is communicative. She doesn't seem crazy or anything like that, and she's begging for help. And it's not like she's saying people can't breathe. She's saying there's a dead body right there. And I mean, kudos to this girl and her parents. She was raised well and is just a good person because she tried so hard to help. And
to your point though about her character, she came out on social, I don't remember what platform, and was saying like, hey, please don't go after security, please don't, like, she was asking people to, like, you know, don't send the mobs after these people, like they were doing, I don't know if she said they were doing their job, but something to the effect of like, she's you know, trying to intervene a little bit and be like, this is what happened, but like, you don't need to go after these people. Like,
yeah, people are so quick. They want to blame somebody right away. It's like, just wait and let them investigate and see what truly happened. Like, immediately it seemed like that story came out of the security guard feeling the prick on his neck and saying that he was injected with something and he passed out. And that like caught fire so fast. And then people were saying, but I mean, they were in a crowd where nobody could move, and yet somebody was able to run around injecting people.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like it makes sense at all.
yeah, no, it's a lot of weird stuff going on with this case. But eventually the concert was interrupted by sirens of an ambulance, and Scott notices it and seems to be confused. And Scott stopped the music, and seeing the ambulance said, "What the fuck is that?" Oh, and sorry, there's a lot of language in this episode, just a heads up. Then he carried on until Live Nation stopped the concert roughly 30 minutes earlier than planned, around 10:10 p.m. However, this was 40 minutes after city officials said the mass casualty event had begun. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner said at 9:30 p.m. right there, that's when a few people started going down. Our people stepped up and immediately went to the producer and told him people are going down. The show ended at 10:10 p.m. You cannot just close when you have 50,000 individuals that young. You can have rioting. And to this guy's thing also, they said they came to Travis before the concert and said they were concerned before. Okay, just want to make sure we know that. So the victims' ages range from age 10 to 27, and some people appear to have been trampled, authorities said, and others died of cardiac arrest. When I looked at all these victims individually, a lot of their autopsies hadn't been completed yet, and there's a little bit of we still unknown, so that will come. So as we said earlier, you know, there was 50,000+ people there because they weren't taking tickets. They don't really know how many people were there. It was just chaos from the very beginning, and they didn't enforce clear bag policies, didn't check people's bags, according to some attendants. On this note, really quick, I was watching a TikTok and I don't remember her name. I'll put it in the notes because I want to make sure there's credit where credit's due, and also if you want to follow her or whatever. But she said she worked security. And she said, like, one, they were volunteers with no training. Okay. And two, they had backpacks and not one person checked their backpacks, nothing. Like it's insane to hear about how unprofessional that, like, you would think a big business like Live Nation would have actual security in place instead of volunteer security. It's a very bizarre kind of situation.
Yeah. People that were supposed to be medical help that didn't have medical training. I heard multiple EMTs that were there that were looking at the security and saying, that's not how you do CPR, and like making them move over so that they could do it. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen that they dropped a victim on her head. Did you see that?
No.
She fell like 8 feet. They're like holding her all unwieldy, and her limp, lifeless body falls on her head. Unfortunately, I don't think she was alive to begin with, but it's horrific. Like, EMTs and lawyers that I've seen talk about it are like, we have never seen anything like this. Like, she wasn't even strapped down, just fell right off. It's wild what was going on there.
So Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, who also, side note, from watching this documentary, has a personal relationship with Travis Scott. Okay, like they are very buddy buddy, chummy chummy. He gave Travis Scott like the keys to the city, that kind of stuff. And also made like a Astroworld day. Like they're definitely friendly, to
Yeah.
say the least. So he called for law enforcement and the festival organizer Live Nation and the venue to explain, quote, how the event got so out of control, leading to the deaths and injuries of several attendees. Which, like, you also probably should have a relationship with your chief police, officers, right? And they said they had concerns before. So, like, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of playing them a bit there. Like,
He's
oh,
playing both sides. Yeah.
it's not good. So the deaths at the Astroworld Festival call to mind other rare traumatic incidents at concerts and festivals in which crowds or other factors contributed to dangerous conditions for some attendees. It's nothing new. There have been so many deaths at concerts throughout the years. For example, in June 2000, 9 people died at a Pearl Jam concert in Denmark. December 1979, 11 people died at the Who concert in Cincinnati. In 2003, Rhode Island, there was a station nightclub fire that 100 people died both from the fire and from being trampled on, like some at the Astroworld Festival were. So there is one stark difference. Travis Scott seems to enjoy inciting kinds of violence. I don't think he obviously wanted anyone to die, but he's being so careless. And it's not the first time, which we'll get into later. But here's an example of when Nirvana stopped a show because Kurt Cobain witnessed a man assaulting a woman.
I love this clip so much because he's playing an instrument and singing a song, and he looks over and sees this girl and stops everything. And not only he steps up, but Dave Grohl, I always forget how to say his name, but they all jump up and do something. So here, we'll play it for you now.
Cop on the field, anybody? How's it feel, huh? Look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him,
Like you said before, here's the thing, in clips like this, and there were multiple to come out, like, Linkin Park had one, and it's like they literally just stop, they go, hey, they stop everything, and they say what they want to say, and they address the situation. It's so easy. Okay, listen, I'm not a singer, but it looks pretty easy to go, hey, cut the music, or hey, stop, and then address the situation. But to just be saying things to get people more riled up or not addressing it seems very irresponsible. And,
And that's why I think it's, pun intended, a cop-out for that cop to say, like, we can't just cancel a concert. There could be a riot. These people look up to Travis Scott like he's a god. If he comes out and he's like, look, everybody, we've got to stop the show, people will listen to him. What they're referring to is like when there's noise complaints or something like that and they're trying to shut it down and the band wants to keep playing,
right.
Of course, then you have the potential for a riot. But that wouldn't have happened if Travis was on board and he was like, turn the lights on, cut the music.
And they're not saying like, okay, tell everybody to leave. It would obviously be like him telling people just stop, maybe take a few steps backward, whatever it is, like give yourself some elbow room, just bring things down a notch versus like ignoring everything and just keep going crazy.
Exactly. All he had to do, or one of the things that would have been the most beneficial, is to stop, turn the lights on and say, hey, everybody look around you and make sure nobody's on the ground. Right now, make sure you can help people up and raise your hands if somebody needs help. Then they could have taken those people out.
And then also just to kind of touch on this too, while we're talking about this is his hometown. These are his people, his community, his number one fans, right? Like, if he's not going to show these people the utmost respect in terms of their lives and their safety, like, what the fuck?
Just to play devil's advocate, how old is he? 30?
Not even.
I think I said 30. So most of these kids are so young. They have no prefrontal cortex. They're not going to make good decisions. I
Yeah.
don't blame them for a lot of this stuff. And so just to play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
he's an artist, he's a rapper. He allegedly is very into the drug scene. He might have been allegedly out of his mind on drugs. And in that case, I mean, you're not capable of like doing all of that
Listen,
stuff and
I
being that present.
completely agree. And I also think when this on the same kind of subject, like artists tend to have like these alter egos, right? Like at home with his baby, he might be one way, might be calm, cool, collect, whatever. And then when he's in Travis Scott, artist mode, it could be a totally different mindset. I feel like a lot of these guys go into like they're not even guys, like a lot of artists have to get into a certain headspace to be on stage in general. And you're right, like compared to the hype of the crowds, whatever might be in your system, like there's so many factors, and I totally get it. I just think
And nobody understands. I've talked to so many celebrities about fame, and they say like it's impossible to explain to you, but it's like a drug and you get so addicted to it. And that's another thing. It's like before you have a kid, you don't understand what it's like to be a parent. Like we have no idea what that feels like when you get up on that
100%.
stage and all those people are there for you and chanting, and maybe something happens in your brain where you're just like, so euphoric and whatever. But nonetheless, it didn't look so good. There's so many clips of him where he's just looking down, and it seems like he must be able to see that they're carrying dead bodies out. And maybe he thought they were people that fainted because.
Or when you see the ambulance lights, say same thing, kind of like, okay, guys, hold on a second or whatever. Like, but like it's right in front of him.
Yeah, and then his fans jumped on top of it, and he didn't tell them to get down. So. Houston Police Department Chief Troy Finner said at a press conference Saturday afternoon, "This is now a criminal investigation that's going to involve our homicide division as well as narcotics, and we're going to get down to the bottom of it." And this is where he really pushed that, like, somebody had been injected with somebody, and we don't know what that was. And I found that to be odd to be saying that so soon when he didn't have that much evidence of it. But
I mean, maybe he saw someone with, I mean, who knows what he saw or what he was privy to before the press conference.
And like Jenna said, he openly admitted that he met with Travis Scott personally before his concert on Friday to express concerns over public safety at the Astroworld Festival. And they didn't even have a plan in place for a crowd surge. Nothing. They have no idea what to do.
If you know the artist and that's how his concerts are, why would you not have a plan in place? Like that's so irresponsible.
Yeah, like when I used to go in the 90s, I feel like that's when mosh pits started. Maybe not. Maybe that's just what I feel like. Yeah. But there were always ways to get like roped off, and you only went in there if you wanted. And then even if you got pushed over there was almost always guys that would like pick you up and like put you back out. But this seemed like everyone was crammed together, and you couldn't get out of there if you didn't want to, be in that craziness of the mosh pit, which talk about people seems like they're in another planet when they do that, doesn't it?
I agree. It's wild. It's wild to watch, and I don't know.
So on a side note, if you're curious what Drake and Travis Scott were doing a mere half hour after this mass casualty event that they had been informed about, they were partying at Dave & Buster's.
Stop it.
And posting videos and Instagram lives, and
I didn't know that part.
TMZ has a source that said Scott left the party when it was confirmed that people had died. He knew what was happening, but not until people died. Then he left. And, just like his presence, like partying after that, after seeing the ambulance and that sort of thing, it just adds to the accusations against him and showing that he's callous and he just has a disregard for people and for tragedy. And that's upsetting. But Jenna, tell us about these poor victims.
Yes. So first there is FANCO PATIñO, 21. He was described as a charismatic, energetic leader who was active in his community and intent on helping people with disabilities. His his father, Julio Patino, said that he was working on a new medical device and wanted to find a way to help his mother walk again after she was severely injured in an automobile accident in Mexico 2 years ago. He says he loved his mom. He said everything that he was doing was trying to help his mom. That was the entire goal. Next is Jacob, or Jake Jeranek, 20 years old. Jacob was friends with actually Franco Patino, and they were there together at the concert or festival. Jacob was a junior at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, where he was pursuing his passion for art and media, and his family had stated that in a statement they gave. And they said he was just over 2 weeks short of his 21st birthday, and we were all devastated and are left with a huge hole in our heart, in our lives. And the two of them, I guess, were really close, like almost inseparable. So I would imagine that means their families are probably also. So it's like it's a double loss. It really is kind of wild to think about those poor families and what they're having to go through. Next is John Hilgert, 14. The youngest victim. He went to the concert with a classmate and the classmate's mother, and she spoke to Fox 59, stating that everything about that night was a tragedy. John was a good student and an athlete and so polite. He was the sweetest and smartest young man. And mourners began tying green ribbons around trees at the school over the weekend in his memory. I have a 14-year-old. I can't even. Oh my God.
So, I mean, sending them to a concert.
Anyway, oh Lord. Okay. And then there's Madison Dubisky, 23. She was a varsity cheerleader in high school and a member of the community service group called National Charity League. A former classmate described her as, quote, she was definitely the life of the party and loved by so many people. Mirza Danish Beg, 27. He was an innocent young soul who would always put others before him. He was a hardworking man who loved his family and took care of us. He was there in a heartbeat for anything. He always had a solution to everything, said his brother Beg. Or Basil. I used to know someone with that name. It's Basil is how they went by it, but I'm not sure.
Well, some go by Basil. I love that name.
I do
It's so
too.
cute.
I do too. Brianna Rodriguez, 16. Brianna had gone to the concert with a group of friends who claimed people were shoving each other and somehow they lost her. And by the time they got to her, she was already unresponsive. People were trying to give her CPR, but it was too late. Her family is devastated to have lost their eldest child, who was known for her love of dance. Oh man. Axel Acosta, 21. Axel traveled to Houston alone to attend the concert. Axel's father, Edgar, confirmed to ABC 13 that his 21-year-old son was the unidentified concert attendee who had been recovered from Memorial Hermann Hospital after the tragedy, and the family has yet to put out any other statements about Axel.
That was really painful because he had traveled out of state, and so his family didn't know how to find him. And just the fact that they had to put his autopsy photo out on the internet, it broke my heart for them. And I hope that it's wiped from the internet now that they've confirmed who he is.
I did very light Googling on some of these people, and I didn't see anything like that for him. So hopefully it's already off. Yeah. Rodolfo Rudy Pena, 23, was a student at Laredo College and wanted to be a border patrol agent. His friend Stacy described him as a people person and said, Rudy was a close friend of mine. We met in high school. He was an athlete. He brought happiness anywhere he went. He was easy to get along with. It was like a positive vibes from him at all times. We all came to have a good time. It was just horrible in there.
That was not easy to read. There's so many wonderful, like young.
Like you said,
They're
a concert.
so
You're sending your family members to a freaking concert, and like this is not the news I think anyone would have expected.
No. And To make matters more upsetting, Travis Scott has a history of concert riots. He's well known for his high energy concerts, like we said. You often see fans engaging in mosh pits and crowd surfing, and he also has a history of arrests for inciting riots at his concerts. In 2017, he was arrested and accused of inviting fans to bypass security and rush the stage at a show at the Walmart Arkansas Music Pavilion in Rogers in Arkansas. So you can find a few pictures online, but I wasn't able to find footage of it, but you can see the kids running towards him. The rapper faced 3 misdemeanor charges of inciting a riot, disorderly conduct, and endangering the welfare of a minor at the time, according to Los Angeles Times. In 2015, during a Lollapalooza music festival in Chicago, officials said Scott encouraged fans to vault security barricades. However, no one was injured. So his set then at Lollapalooza only lasted 5 minutes before being cut short and the police intervening. Footage from the show shows Scott saying, quote, "middle finger up to security right now," before leading the crowd in a chant of "we want rage." Scott was sentenced to 1 year of court supervision after pleading guilty to reckless conduct charges stemming from the 2015 incident. And I don't know if it was this incident or a different concert, but at one of these concerts, people were up in the rafters and he was telling them to jump and encouraging one guy to jump. So one guy jumps and then you hear another person say, "I don't want to die," because they're up there and the whole thing is shaking. And another man fell or jumped and he became a paraplegic, and he has a lot to say about this. He's like horrified that this happened, that he had to lose all that he lost and then people die after the fact. Like, it doesn't seem like much changed.
Yeah, no. First of all, you should not be encouraging people to jump. But at the same time, why are you jumping? Like, there's 2 levels of like responsibility.
But they don't have a prefrontal cortex. They're kids. I know it feels like, how could you be so dumb? We were that dumb.
No, I know. You're 100% right. 100% right. And it's always
hard to go back to that.
Like, yeah.
But it is scientifically proven that they cannot make a good decision, especially when you throw drugs and alcohol and adrenaline in there.
Yeah, true that. And
then in July 2015, at a show in Switzerland, there's footage where Scott he leaps into the crowd, which he does a lot. He does a lot of crowd surfing, and he has very expensive shoes on, of which I'm sure he could find a few more pair because they just get sent to you when you're that rich. And somebody steals a shoe and he freaks out and he points out the fan and tells everybody, first he says, "Come here, bitch." He shouts through the microphone and the music stopped and he accuses the fan of trying to take a shoe. He says, "Get that motherfucker, get him." And he tells fans, "Fuck him up, fuck him up, fuck him up," and waits for quite a while. And so the whole crowd turns on him and it's a frenzy because, again, they look up to him like a god. And he makes his threats like very, very apparent. He, again, shouting into the microphone, "Fuck him up, fuck him up, fuck him up." Travis then appears to spit on the fan after he manages to escape the crowd. And then finally he lets security come in after the kid's been beat up.
Horrible. How do you do that to someone? Okay, he stole your shoe. Like, whatever. Maybe sidebar to your producer or your security and say, "Hey, this homie just took my shoe. Can you please go get it?" Whatever. Like, to have people quote, "fuck him up, fuck him up." Like, how dare you?
It's so awful. It's so disgusting. It's like, these people paid so much money to come see you. And yeah, like, who's to say Travis Scott wouldn't take that shoe? You know what I mean? It's like, they're in love with him. Like, that's what happens when you crowd surf. People take things. Like, remember what people did to Courtney Love when she crowd surfed?
I don't remember. Did she like get her clothes taken off or something?
Somebody took out her tampon.
Stop.
Yeah. So many times at Lollapalooza when the women would jump in and stuff like that, they would be like penetrated and stuff like that. It's disgusting. Boy. And he loses his shoe and then demands everybody beat somebody up. Like, I thought he was younger than that. He's 30. Come on. It's ridiculous.
Oh, Lord have mercy. So, as we've been talking about, Travis Scott's not the only person that's going to be responsible for a lot of this. Live Nation is definitely going to be on the hook for some of this stuff too. And they also have a history. So the concert promoter behind Travis Scott's Astroworld has a slew of tragedies at past events with at least 750 injuries and around 200 deaths in the last 15 years, according to a review of records. Its subsidiary Live Nation Worldwide has previously paid out hundreds of millions from lawsuits over tragedies at previous events in several countries since 2006, according to an investigation by the Houston Chronicle. So per MSN News, organizers had presented Houston police and first responders with two plans: a medical plan by New York City-based Paradox Worldwide, Inc., and security plan by Austin-based promoter Score More Shows addressing potential emergencies. The medical staff in place was overwhelmed by the number of injuries as concertgoers passed out and many were trampled. Paradox Worldwide released a statement disputing allegations it lacked medical staff and equipment, while Score More and concert organizer Live Nation released a statement saying they had provided video footage to investigators and were cooperating to, quote, get everyone the answers they are looking for. So this goes back to what I was saying before about like security and stuff. Listen, for the people that were there, it sounds like it was very underwhelming in terms of the support for security and paramedics and all of things. And they have to literally, for these festivals, turn in documentation saying like, this is our plan and this is what's going to happen in case of emergencies. And nothing seems to have like stuck. Or I feel like everyone, one of the girls on TikTok was saying that worked it. She said it seemed like the security that was there was just kind of enjoying the show and not really doing anything. And again, is she talking about these like volunteer ones, or is this the actual security people? I'm not really sure, but it's a lot needs to change. And yeah, Live Nation's gonna be in trouble also.
Yeah, I think that I read today they're insured up to like 75 million or something like that. But so I have been obsessed like Jenna has, and we've been on TikTok 24 hours a day covering this because it was happening real time.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be on watching all of these things, and just it was horrific. But one thing that I thought was really helpful was this guy on TikTok who, shout out to Dr. J McSlaughter.
Ooh, I like that name.
He's super cute, and he always talks about how he has the worst last name for a doctor because it's Dr. McSlaughter.
That's funny.
But he came up with 4 really good ideas. So really easy ways to protect yourself if you're in this situation. So first of all, keep your elbows down and your arms up like this, so you're guarding your chest, so you can still expand your lungs. Because if you're not and you're pressed up against something, you're will done. Suffocate.
Yeah.
He said if you fall, get up as fast as you possibly can. There's a phenomenon called crowd collapse where it just takes one person and then it almost turns into like
effect,
a whirlpool of people, and they just get sucked down, and that's where the worst injuries happen. Number 3, go with the flow. He said, do not try to push and shove. You won't make a dent, and you'll expend all of your energy and possibly get hurt because of this. And he said, to put it in perspective, those metal barricades they're built to withstand 1,000 pounds of pressure, and they're tossed like toothpicks by the crowd. So don't even try to like push back. And I thought that was a good thing to say, because that would be me. I'd be like, get away. And then I'd be like, I'm so tired.
That was me. Anytime I was even in a proximity to some of those situations, I would be like pushing people, like, get out of here.
Yeah, Tauruses are not fans of crowd. I mean, you're a bull. You turn into a bull. It's like, get away from me. And I'm a fish. I'm swimming away. So number 4, he said, avoid any hard surfaces, which we spoke about before. I know you want to get the best view. I was that same kid running up to the barricade. Don't go up next to the barricades or fences or walls or buildings, even if there's shade. Like, think about this when you're at the concert.
Like, going to concerts that actually have seating, like we just get rid
No.
of that whole standing section? Like, I can't.
Those were the olden days, okay? We almost died in a pandemic. It's YOLO. We're gonna go crazy.
Oh, I'm waiting to. I'm sure. I'm surprised I haven't heard more about how like there was no one in mask, no one checking for any
Oh,
like
please. Oh,
I'm
God.
surprised the mob hasn't come after that aspect of this yet, because definitely it's not
Some middle-aged
quiet.
mom will come up with it. That'll be the next wave for Travis. That'll probably take him down faster, being canceled. So anyway, thanks to Dr. McSlaughter for those 4 tips. Tell anybody you know that goes to a lot of concerts, because they're easy tips and they could
Yeah.
save a life.
100%. So going forward, next, the things that are going to be happening is there's obviously a lot of calls for an independent review of the entire event. Officials with the Houston Police and Fire Departments will investigate whether the promoter and others behind the festival followed the plans and whether they were sufficient. They were not, in my opinion. According to the LA Times, lawsuits have already been filed, including one that holds Scott, Drake, Live Nation, and the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation, owner of NRG Park, responsible for the crowd surge. A Texas attorney filed that lawsuit on Sunday, accusing the defendants of prioritizing profits over their attendees. 100% agree. More have been filed, and with the concert safety consult Paul Wertheimer saying that the disaster was, quote, preventable or more or likely. The fans were the victims of an environment in which they could not control. I mean, yeah, you think you're going to a fun concert, and then all of a sudden you're in chaos. And so many people said too, just the energy of the whole thing was so bizarre and so heavy and like kind of dark, and like, you know, you're panicking, and then the music is kind of intense on top of it, and I just can't even imagine the atmosphere that was. Just watching all these TikToks, I'm sure you felt it too. It felt heavy just watching it all.
It did, and a lot of people were saying that. Almost everyone I saw, they were like, it's demonic, it feels demonic, and there were so many conspiracy theories about it being a portal and all of this stuff, and I think that maybe that caught on, but I think it was astrological, because it was a new moon in Scorpio, and there's lots of stuff going on with Scorpio, and Earth is about to have its return of Pluto, which is the planet of death and mayhem. And so a lot of astrologers had been saying, look out for this day, something's going to happen on this day. That's kind of ridiculous, but that's what I feel like when it's a full moon, and it's like you can kind of tell it's a full moon.
And listen, like, whether you believe in that stuff or not, like I feel like artists do things for kind of the shock value anyway, right? Like I mean, he does take things, like I was watching a video kind of comparing, you know, Dante's Inferno to the imagery he uses, and it's all very similar. So yeah, there is like a quote unquote demonic element to the imagery, but I don't necessarily think, you know, what was the people were saying, the big theories like the sacrifice or whatever. I'm not on that train. I think it's more of like, I'm gonna get talked about, right? Like some people don't care what kind of conversations are happening as long as there's conversations happening.
Yeah, and it's always been like that, you know, like Madonna rolling around singing "I'm a Virgin," and people are always trying to up the ante, and
Lady
like
Gaga
Beyonce
wearing a meat dress. There's weird shit that goes on.
And all and Beyonce singing, I love her line in Formation when she says, all talking about Illuminati mess or whatever. They take that and run with it because they know people are going to talk, like you said. So how will Travis and Drake recover, or will they? According to the Daily Mail, one woman, identified only as Rachel, was furious over the death of her friend FANCO, the 21-year-old that we spoke about. Quote, "My friend is gone forever because of Astroworld. The anger I have over this is insane. Travis Scott is going to have to do a hell of a lot more than a post-it note apps apology," she tweeted. So that's what he did. He did some thing where he was like looking down the whole time, apologizing. It took Drake like 3 days.
And he was like, and it was like so awkward. I was like, oh God.
And you know what's interesting? You know, a lot of people don't believe in body language, but I remember learning in, I think in college, or maybe I watched a show, looking down is a sign of lying.
Yeah.
And he's looking down in his
The
whole
whole
pose.
time.
And also touching your forehead like that is also a sign of lying, or I got to look that up. But I've watched this person who was decoding his apology and going through like everybody's apology. It took Drake days to
Yeah.
post anything. And what's going to be very interesting is the Kardashians. I feel like Kylie's going to have this baby and either try to make this baby be like the savior, or she's going to cut her losses and he's going to disappear.
Yes, I totally agree. Like Kardashians, it's going to be interesting to see what happened, because I feel like, one, they all immediately stopped posting, right? It's like PR teams come in, like, don't post anything. But I think she has no choice but to distance herself, and publicly, like whatever happens behind closed doors, whatever. But I think publicly she will definitely distance herself, because she's got a company that people can say, I'm not going to buy your products if you are supporting this person. And I feel like I don't know. I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And then also the connection to Live Nation, all the things.
It's going to be very interesting.
And I don't think, okay, listen, if this was like a one-time thing, I feel like, yeah, of course, like learn and move on or whatever. But because now we've seen a pattern, I would think stadiums or grounds that have these festivals are not going to want the liability of him performing whatsoever. And I think that
no, he
he's
won't be
he's
insured. There's no
done.
way. The only way he'll be able to put on a concert is it won't be insured, and he'll just have to pay if anything happens. And
Well,
what
Kylie
artist is
will be
going to do
paying
that?
for it at that point, right? 'Cause, like, I think she has way more money than him. But
It's going to be interesting. I mean, Kris Jenner is the queen of everything. This is the biggest, well, I mean, your husband turning into a woman, that's a pretty difficult one. But now how is she going to gloss over 8 people dying?
No, yeah. Like, if it had gotten out of control and whatever, like that's one level, but death is like a whole nother level. And it was so interesting. I don't know if you saw it, but there was like images of Kylie, like, and Kendall and their little like tent or whatever.
Yeah.
And at one point it does feel like Kylie is like, I don't know, stress would be the right word, but like she kind of looks like her demeanor changed a bit, and it almost feels like she started to kind of feel the chaos of it also. And like, can you imagine, you have your baby there, you're pregnant, like I can't even imagine what's going through your head at that point of like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty wild to bring your baby. Like, I have friends who are married to musicians. They don't bring their babies, especially to a festival during a pandemic.
I feel like it's one thing, right? If you're doing a concert like in Las Vegas, I mean, there's green rooms, there's all kinds of backstage space and areas. But when you're at a festival, they're in a flippin' tent. Like,
yeah.
Ew.
All right. So that does it for this episode of Murder in Retrograde. We hope you enjoyed our little different story today. It's not the usual, but it's just fascinating, and hopefully we passed along some information that can help some people if they are stuck in this awful situation in the future.
And we'll definitely keep posted as things unravel and kind of see what happens. Make sure to follow all of our socials, comment, reach out, suggest cases, whatever you want to hear, and then we'll see you next week.
Adios.
Bye.